Hi, the topic today is how to be highly effective, and we are focusing on we are at war with the invisible enemy. I repeat, we are at war with the invisible enemy. Whatever you call a thing, that is what it is. Whatever you call a thing, that is what it is. Currently, the world is at war with the enemy. The people of the world is at war with the enemy. You can see how the pandemic is sweeping across the world. You can see the number of deaths. A lot of people are dying now. In London now, we have over 1,000 people. In Italy, it's getting to 10,000. In Spain, heading to 10,000. In the United States, the same way is increasing. So we are clearly at war. So anybody who's underestimating this pandemic is grossly mistaken. If you are taking it for granted, you are making a great mistake. Because it is devastating, it's killing a lot of people, and it's taking people to their grave, untimely. So that is why I've come out today to declare that we are at war. We are at war with the coronavirus. The virus is widely spread. It's common now. But I'm not doing this to bring panic. I'm not an alarmist. I don't want you to be afraid. But what I want you to be is for you to be courageous and be bold and be confident in handling the issue, because the enemy will always be defeated. If you stretch out the history, you'll find out that we've always defeated our enemy. Humans are unstoppable and you cannot defeat them. Because we are children of God. There's no way you can defeat humans. So today we are going to look at the history, because one, great people, intelligent people pay attention with time. Time is necessary. This is a time of war. This is a time we are at war with the invisible enemy, and a lot of people are losing. I don't want you to be a loser. I don't want you to lose. I want you to be successful. I want you to be alive, across the other side. So you have to prepare yourself. You have to make preparation, and you have to take practical steps. If you look at my wall yesterday, I wrote, what are the practical steps are you taking to combat this coronavirus? It is not merely rhetorics or mere talking that solve a problem. See, if you want to solve a problem, you have to, first of all, identify it, name it, and go head to head with it. That is how to solve a problem. Now, we are going to look at two great warriors that fought both visible and invisible war. How did they conquer? From there, we can learn lessons, and from there, we can simulate a situation and get a result that will help us to solve this this pandemic, this coronavirus that is menacing the world today. So, like I said, let us learn from champions. Let us learn from the warriors. People, history stated that they fought the invisible war and that fought also the visible war. Now, let's look at David, who fought a physical war. How did David conquer Goliath? That's the question. Because if you don't understand history, you don't understand how wars were fought, if you don't understand how people became successful, it's very, very difficult for you to face crisis like coronavirus. This is a crisis. It's something we cannot control. It's something we don't have absolute control over. And that is why it's menacing. That's why it's killing a lot of people in droves. So now, how did David conquer Goliath? Now, first and foremost, David established a covenant with God. That is the first thing. Among all the Israelites, nobody had covenant with God except David. So now, David, even though he had covenant with God, he put up a physical appearance. He put up a practical step to overcome the Goliath. Goliath is health problem. Goliath is like coronavirus. Goliath is like problem, obstacle, challenges that are facing us. I want you to look at the Goliath as the coronavirus. So if you understand this metaphor, it'll be very easy for you to know what I'm talking. It will be very easy for you to put what you're seeing around you in context. So I would like you to put it in context so that you can now understand it. You can use it and solve your own problem. Or you can use it and bring a solution to the world problem. As we are here now, we've not got a vaccine for coronavirus. And everybody's running helter-skelter, guessing from one angle to the other, guessing from one point to the other. And that is why I'm saying today, we can learn from two people that fought visible and invisible war. Now, you see, David fought Goliath using his sling. So he didn't fight Goliath with empty hand. He didn't fight Goliath sitting there and praying. This is not the time only for prayer. This is the time for us to take practical steps towards overrunning our enemy. So David, first of all, like I said, he established a covenant with God which no other person at that time ever had. That is the first step. The second step was he took a practical action to run to Goliath. He was very offensive. He was very aggressive. He rushed to Goliath. He didn't stay there for Goliath to come to him. He rushed to Goliath to kill him. So what are the practical steps are we taking to overpower the coronavirus? Are we staying there and waiting when the coronavirus will spread to our own home and then kill us? Is that what we're doing? We need to put structures in place. We need to embark on physical things like hospitals, investing in our doctors, investing in the NHS, if you have a hospital, you invest on it. By getting out ventilators. These are physical things. This is not a time where we have to depend solely on prayers. You see, so David can illustrate to us how to solve a problem. To solve a problem, you have to take a practical step. What are the practical steps the world is taking now? What is the practical step you as an individual is taking? What is the practical step you as the head of your family are you taking? What are the practical steps are the world taking? What are the practical steps your country is taking to overpower the coronavirus? See, if you're not confident enough and you are not brave enough to take a practical step, I am afraid you're going to lose the battle. So that's why David took a practical step, and he was proactive, he was creative by using a sling. He didn't sit down there and started going to the church to pray. He never sat down praying in the temple. He used his creative ingenuity. He uses his ingenuity to bring out a sling, and also uses the confidence he possessed to attack David, even to attack Goliath, even though he was spiritually prepared. First and foremost, you must be spiritually prepared in this particular time. Then the second step is you have to take a physical. I'm not talking of a spiritual action now. You have to take a physical, practical, and plan. You must have a plan. So what are your plans? So God did not give us the spirit of fear, but of wisdom and knowledge. So that is what God has given to you. He wants us to be effective. He wants us to be creative. He wants us to be innovative. He doesn't want us to keep on praying. Prayers alone cannot solve this. You have to get into an action. Like you have to, for instance, now you have to quarantine yourself. You have to take, take the guidelines the government is giving. It's like safe distance. You're washing your hand. These are practical things. And at the same time, you have to think creatively how we can physically combat it, how we can get a special ventilator, how you can innovate or create a special ventilator, a special means from which people can breathe who are already in danger. So the purpose of this video today is not where you have to come sit down and start praying alone. David prayed. Now, I'm going to look at it so that we can see the way I'm thinking, whether it is, in resonates with you, whether it is you share the same value or you share the same belief with me. Because first and foremost, you have to see how things happen in the past. That will help you, to put things into context and see how you can learn from it. Because if you don't, it's going to be very, very difficult, because there are always invisible things and there are also visible things to do. So David fought the invisible war first, and before he fought the visible war, he spiritually and mentally defeated Goliath before you saw it in a physical realm. So we have the following. Now, we can learn from David now. David, first of all, if you see, I'm going to come through this way now. David was first and foremost, in fact, David predicted the coming of Christ. David, in fact, if somebody who studied time, who was paying attention to time, he could understand that David was like a simulator to the coming of Christ. God used David as a means of simulation. Is a copy of Jesus Christ. So somebody who understood David could have predicted the coming of Christ, could have predicted what could be happening. Because before God does something, he always shows you in a smaller form what you're going to see. So if people of the world were paying attention during that time, they would have known that Christ was coming. And probably they would have known how he would come. Now, look at this thing. I did this analysis to help us so that we can understand this now. Now, David was a king. Jesus Christ was a king. God loved David. Jesus Christ. God loved Jesus Christ. David defeated Goliath. Jesus Christ defeated Satan. Now, then David was a man after God's heart. Jesus Christ was Son of God, a man after God's heart. Now, the kingdom of God, God established his kingdom in Zion, and he also established it in Jesus Christ. Now, when David was about to fight this war, David understood that he could not win this war with the old system, with the old strategy. So the same way we are facing the coronavirus, we can't win it the same normal strategy we'll be using, the old strategy. Because already the devil always knows the old strategy. Yeah, you don't fight your enemy with the old strategy and old styles. You can never win it. You got to have a new style. You got to take the enemy unawares. You got to take him, outside his environment and beat him up. You see how the eagle defeats the serpent. It takes it and lifts it to the air, to a new environment. So if you want to defeat something, you have to take it to a new environment. If it is the same environment the person used to, you're not going to defeat it. So David took Goliath out of his comfort zone. So if we're going to defeat the coronavirus, we have to take the coronavirus out of its comfort zone. We have to put, an environment that is innovative, an environment that, creatively get an environment that we can use to defeat it. If it is the normal thing we've been doing, we can't defeat it. We have to get a special type of vaccine. We have to use a different approach. Now, when David was to face Goliath, David was given an old coat by Saul. David did not reject it because he knew that you can't face the enemy with the same strategy, the same tool, the same tactics he already possessed. It has to be different. Now, that was why David rejected the old suit given to him, the old coat, armor, and other things Saul gave to him, because it was too heavy on him. He couldn't wear it because it was too heavy. Now, Jesus Christ rejected the old tradition because he didn't fight the Satan the way Satan thought he was going to fight him. He fought him in a spiritual way. Because if Satan knew, it would be very impossible. But he came in a different manner. It was God that came in form of a man. A strategy devil never anticipated. He came through a woman conceived of the Holy Spirit. If you look at him, it looks like a human being, but inside him, he was 100% Holy Spirit inside him. God was full-time there. The Holy Spirit was full-time there. So the devil took him for granted, and he never knew he was going to come in that manner. By the time the devil knew, the devil was already defeated. So these are the strategies, the strategies you can use to fight your enemy. You don't go to your enemy with the same armor, the same gun, the same strategy he already has. You have to go. That's why Albert Einstein says you cannot fight a battle, you cannot do something on the same platform for which it was created. And Albert Einstein said again, you cannot do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. If you're expecting a different result, you are crazy. You are the craziest person in the universe. That is why we have to innovate. We have to be creative. We have to find a different way of handling this kind of coronavirus. Because if you are using the same strategy we already use, you're not going to defeat it. And that is why it's taking too long now. So we are inspiring scientists, creative people, innovative people to be on deck and see what are the strategies we can use. Because the enemy has brought this virus in order to, finish the universe, in order to finish the human being. But we cannot fold our hand and allow them to menace the people of God. We cannot allow them to menace us. We have to take war to them. We have to fight them in a real battle. And that is why I said we are at war. Because whatever you name something, that is what it is. If you are thinking you are on a rosy battle or you are on a cruise, you are wasting your time. This is a war. Do you know how many people have already died? Do you know how many people have already been infected? Even during the war, the number of people we are seeing today were never killed. So that's why Trump said this are invisible enemy. We are at war. Any leader who is not conscious, who is not aware that we are at war, is making a mistake. So we have to learn from history. We have to learn how great people conquered their enemy. We have to learn how great people survive their challenges and difficulties. And that is where I'm going back to now. And that is why I'm carrying my book and reading it out, so that we can do the analysis. We can now see how we can be very imaginative, and how we can be very innovative, and how we can be very creative in getting tools and equipment and instruments and things on board, even to build hospitals, and how we can handle this kind of crisis. Because this kind of crisis is here to open door for us. It's here to usher us into a new world. It's here to usher us into a new thinking. So if you look at here, David rejected the old system of things. In yourself, you have to reject the tradition. You have to reject the old way of doing things. You have to, reject the business as usual. Business as usual is that you are playing over these things. You are taking it for granted. It's spreading, and you are still, making yourself vulnerable. David didn't make himself vulnerable. Jesus Christ didn't make himself vulnerable. So the same way these two people use in fighting the war is the same way we can use to fight coronavirus and use it to defeat. I'm not talking of prayers this time around. I'm talking of physical things we can do, practical things we can do to eliminate this coronavirus. Now, so the key thing is, this one is the most important. Rejecting the old. We have to reject the old system. We have to reject the old lifestyle. We have to reject business as usual. We have to reject corruption. We have to reject greed. Because if we are greedy, we will divert the resources meant for the hospital, meant for researches, meant for delaying the spread of virus, and then put it into our pocket. And that has been what we've been doing. If the world had took notice, had read the time, they would have predicted that this thing is going to come and would have made provision for it, because already it's going to come. So the people that understand time are the people that survive. People who don't understand time do not survive. They get perished because they don't know that they are sleepwalking into their death by folding their hand, by thinking that they cannot, be proactive. Look at David was proactive. David rushed against Goliath. Now, I'm not saying you should rush against Corona. What it means is that you can go to hospital. You can wash your hand. You can become a doctor. You can become a nurse. You can become a speaker. You can become somebody who can innovate or inspire people to be creative. You can become somebody who can give people the confidence and the courage they require at this present time, instead of being pessimistic and being afraid. Fear do not solve a problem. And once you have a spirit of fear, you are with the enemy, because you cannot defeat with that slave spirit. So that is why today I'm bold and courageous enough to tell you, let's look at how problems were solved. From there, you can now think out, come into context and see how best you can use your imaginative mind to solve problems. God has created us be powerful like him. He has given us everything, but the thing is that we don't believe it. And because we don't believe it, if this kind of challenge comes in, we give in, we give out, we take it for granted, and then it consumes the people. So first and foremost, we have identified it as a coronavirus. We've identified it as enemy. We've identified it as invisible war. We've identified it as war. So if you're at war, do you play? Do you find yourself playing in the field? No. So why are you taking this for granted? Why are you playing now? Why are you playing over it? Taking it for granted? One moment. So like I said, David fought Goliath with strategy never used before. The same thing, Christ fought devil with strategy. Even though it was a spiritual war, he fought him with a tool that devil wasn't aware. The same way, we have to use a strategy that the originators of coronavirus never thought we had. Because coronavirus was man-made. Because as we know, John F. Kennedy told us that every problem in this world is man-made. It is man that created it, and it is man that will solve it. So this is not a conspiracy. Coronavirus was man-made. And it takes a human being to solve it. So we have to think beyond the originators of coronavirus. Because the originators of coronavirus thought we're not going to think in this way. We have to think deeper. We have to go deep. Go into our archives and get, draw out the wisdom which God has given to us. And that is what I'm reading out now. That some people who are gifted in this area can pay attention and simulate things and get into the depth of what I'm talking about. Now, so if you want to fight something, you cannot use the same tool. You cannot use the same strategy. Jesus Christ never used the strategy that was ever used before. That was why he was able to defeat Satan. The same way, during the physical war, David never used a tool that was used before. He used a new tool. He used a new strategy. He used a new approach. He used a new invention, which was a sling. He knew that a man with javelin and armor cannot come well with a man with a projectile. So he was fully equipped, both spiritually and physically. He had a means of a strategy, a projectile strategy, which Goliath never saw before, which the Goliath underestimated. So we cannot be afraid of coronavirus. Nowhere. We have to be courageous and use a strategy, because we are children of God. We are more scientific. We are more educated. We are more gifted. We have wisdom than them. So this is the time we have to go into our inside and draw out the wisdom we already possess. As I'm talking to you, I know you have a spirit of God, you possess God, and you have God inside of you. So if you have God inside of you, why are you afraid? Fear and God do not mix. So we can never be afraid. We have to be courageous. We have to be very brave. We have to have confidence so that we can now tap into, the power, the fire already inside of us. What I'm doing now, I am giving you a story how these two great men solved the world problem. And if we apply it today, we will be smarter than the originators of the coronavirus. We have to be ahead of them. We have to be 10 times, 100 times ahead of them now. So this is all about innovation. This is all about creativity. It's not only about prayer. Prayer is important because you have to establish your relationship with God. As you see, these two men, they had covenant with God. David had covenant with God that no man had. Jesus Christ had covenant with God that no man had. These are two people, two warriors, two fighters. Now, Jesus Christ, David was a shepherd. Jesus Christ was a shepherd. A shepherd means a leader. David fought a physical war. Jesus fought an invisible war, a spiritual war. David was always praying to God. Jesus was always praying to God. Like I said, David had a covenant with God, which none of the Israelites had it. And God, Jesus Christ was God. Nobody was God like him. Now, they used these things to overpower. Now, when David came to attack Goliath, God always wants us to be offensive. God is always offensive if you watch his strategy. He doesn't allow the enemy to come to his side. He goes against the enemy. Now, we have to go against the virus by one, washing our hand. 2, by keeping a distance. 3, by separating ourselves from having congregations and the thing that the government is telling us. And 4th, by research. We have to research. We have to study these things. We have to be creative. Being offensive doesn't mean being offensive means having a step ahead of the enemies. Like building hospitals, making a move to study medicine, making a move to be a nurse, making a move to help the people who are not in good position. By researching, producing vaccine, mixing the herbs and other things we have. Everything is already here. Whatever is in heaven is already on earth. But the problem is belief. We don't have faith. Faith is all about believing it. I have faith in God. That means I will believe that I will outlast this virus. Believing in it. One thing is to have faith, and thing is to have a belief in it. And then if you have faith, there must be work. David had faith in God, and he did the work. He didn't stay in the temple to pray and continue to pray. He had to physically go against the enemy. So we are saying we have to do physical things. We have to be objective in taking control of the world today, in cleaning the world of this coronavirus. It is not something we're going to achieve with intimidation. It's not something we're going to achieve with fear, jealousy, and hatred. This is the time to pay attention and see whether you can understand your environment. It's being conscious of your environment. Being proactive, being creative is being conscious of your environment. Are we conscious of our environment? If we're conscious of our environment, have we been able to define what coronavirus is? Have you been able to name it? If you don't name something, you cannot defeat it. If you don't have a name for it, you cannot, like I said now, we're at war. Have you told your conscious, subconscious mind that you're at war? Then if it's a war, you will now know this is not a time for business as usual. You will know that you have to pay attention. You will know that you don't have to use a tunnel vision. Because once we are afraid, what clicks in is the limbic system. And once the limbic system is the one that asks us to do things based on emotion, based on the mood, based on their feelings. It's not based on logic. So that is why we're saying that we should never be afraid. We are saying that we should not allow fear to come into this moment. You have to be very optimistic. Because once you are afraid, your frontal lobe disappears. The limbic drives out the frontal lobe. And the frontal lobe is the system, the brain, the aspect of the brain that helps you to think, that helps you to use logic, that helps you to use reason, that helps you to use imagination. The limbic is the one that goes to the subconscious. It's already something you've understood. It is limbic, it has advantage, but you need to recover and allow the frontal lobe to take control. Because once you're afraid, fear clicks in, the limbic takes over. And if the limbic takes over, you are no longer creative. You are no longer imaginative. You cannot use your logic. And that is why we're saying we should not fear. That is the basic thing why we say we shouldn't fear. We shouldn't be afraid of situation. We shouldn't be afraid of crisis, because this is opportunity. This is opportunity for children of God to shine. Difficult time is like a night. The night is like a star. It's for people to shine. This is the opportunity for you to bring out the creativity, the ingenuity you already possess, which you don't know that is inside of you. Now use it to invent something. Use it to be creative. Apply it now. This is the time of application. This is not a time to look at what your neighbor is thinking. This is not the time to go into a look at what people are doing, this is a time for you to be constructive. It's not a time we have to blame anybody. We can't blame anybody at the moment because it's already done. It's already done. It's done. There's no time to blame. The only time is for us to come together and be creative and allow our frontal lobe to work. Leave your limbic system. The limbic system is watching something based on emotion. You're watching something based on the mood. It's telling you to do something that is irrational. And then once the limbic takes over, you are not conscious of your environment anymore. Once your limbic takes over, you start developing, your pupil starts, dilating, and your bronchial system starts, dilating, and that is the problem. So once this thing started dilating, you start having a narrow vision. And once you have a narrow vision, you are no longer conscious of your environment. And that is what fear does to us. So my purpose of this video today is not to bring fear, it's to bring creativity, to bring courage, to bring, confidence and boldness. Because we are children of God. Remember, God has given us power that whatever that is we bind on earth is bound in heaven. So we have to establish a covenant with God. That is a spiritual one, which we're supposed to have. Then the physical one is to use our brain to be creative, to see how best you can use your time and moment. One moment. What can you do at this present time? Now that you're at home, you are self-isolating, or you are staying at home because of the coronavirus, because of the distancing, because of 10-meter distance, because of quarantine and other things apply, which are practically all right. But in your bedroom, you can be creative. There are books. You can inspire somebody. Like what I'm doing today is to inspire somebody. There are some people who are waiting this kind of knowledge in order to trigger their own knowledge, in order to trigger their own ingenuity and creativity. They are waiting for this. And I've already given it out. I've given you how these two great people fought a war and defeated. And the same way, if we apply it, we will defeat it. Whether it's physical war or spiritual war, whether it is visible and invisible. You see, these two people, Jesus Christ and David, are the same. So whoever understood David will understand Christ. Whoever understood Christ will understand David. This God used David as a prelude, as a way to introduce Jesus Christ. But a lot of people didn't understand it. A lot of people didn't have the concept. Because before God wants to do something, he has a kind of simulation. David was a king. Jesus Christ was a king. David was a shepherd. Jesus Christ was a shepherd. Shepherd means a leader. And you're also a king. You're also a leader. David used a new strategy. He rejected the javelin and the armory Saul provided him. Jesus Christ rejected the old tradition of which the Israelites used to fight, do things spiritually. He introduced a new order. He introduced a new word. He introduced a new tense. So that was why he was able to overcome the devil. The same way David used a new strategy. It's a new strategy devil never knew. Goliath never knew. So that is all I'm saying today. So today there's a saying here that the weeping may endure for a night, but the joy is coming in the morning. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy is coming in the morning. We have to know that this is the opportunity. The joy is coming. Even though we've lost our loved ones, we lost people, but the joy is coming. There is hope. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. So don't see this as a permanent problem. See it as a temporary problem. This is a seasonal problem. It comes in the season. After a time now, it will be all over. The war will not last forever. This is a time of war. And it's not going to last forever. It's the people who are endured see the end of the finish line. So I'm expecting you to be proactive. I'm expecting you to be constructive. I'm expecting you to be objective. Stop being pessimistic. Stop being subjective. Be creative. See how you can use your mind, because God has given us enough. Each and every one of us has been abundantly given, far and beyond what you can imagine. So God has, because once God gave you something, he has given you everything. If he give you one thing, he has given you everything. So he has given us life. That means he has given us himself. We possess himself, so we can't be afraid. What we have to do is to sit down and see what is the best approach. How am I going to overcome this coronavirus? How am I going to deal with it? And apply this creative process. That's all we need. We don't need people who are afraid. We don't need people to start blaming the other people now. We don't need people who will be very jealous and very bitter and very cheeky. We don't want this kind of thing now, because this is a time of war. We have to unite and see a way, because once people unite, they will do the impossible. It looks impossible, but it's possible according to Mahatma Gandhi, according to Nelson Mandela. It looks impossible until it's done. And Mahatma Gandhi said that if he stifles the little voice in him, he is useless. So I cannot for any reason stifle the little voice, the still little voice inside of me. That is the voice of God speaking. The thought of a righteous man is the thought of God. The thought of a righteous man is accurate. The thought of a righteous man is more accurate than statistics. So go with objectivity. Be creative, be innovative. There are so many things you can do in your house now. If you are a writer, you can keep on writing. If you are a scientist, you can start thinking of how to do things now. Now is the time we can. Necessity is the mother of invention. So now is the time to overpower everything. It is the time for us to shine. The night is the perfect time for the stars to shine. The night is the time for children of God to shine. Don't be afraid of anybody. Be confident and be bold and be courageous, because you are a child of God. Nobody can defeat you. Thank you.